Now there's one more thing about this sticky note window that's important to realize, and that's the fact that I can select the text in it, and I can actually control the formatting of the content in this note. I can do it by either right-clicking or control-clicking if I'm on a Macintosh without a right-button mouse, and choosing some of the styling options that appear in the contextual menu. However, it's more formal, and actually I have more power if I instead choose to come over to the View, Toolbars, and select the Properties bar. The Properties bar kind of keeps up with whatever I'm doing, and in this case I have text selected in a sticky note. I can use the pop-up text properties bar, which is what it becomes, to change the formatting of the text in here. And that's important for a couple of reasons. One, I might want to make the text larger, and so I can either click to make it larger, or I can click to make it smaller. Either way, I can change the size of the text, and that can make it easier to read the text if I have a lot of text, or if I've got a small amount of text and I want to make it so that it's easier to see, I can increase its size. But I can also use this as a structural indicator. For example, in this case here, I want to highlight or emphasize the word both. To do that in a word processor or in an authoring document such as InDesign, I might bold that text. Well, I can bold that text here by selecting the text and then rolling back over to the Properties bar and clicking Bold. Essentially what's happening in this little text window is I have a rich text editor, and if you're not familiar with rich text, it's just a format that can maintain things like bold and italics and underline and font sizes. I don't really have access to a choice of typeface that I can make here. That's not so much a structural issue, that's a formatting and graphics issue. The reason that Adobe gives me the ability to edit structural things is because as a text editor, it can be very, very important for me to bold this particular item. And instead of having to write some tag or write a different note to indicate that it's bold, I can bold it right here. When all is said and done, and I've applied a little bit of formatting, I've perhaps italicized a word by clicking italics, I can then copy the text out of here and choose Edit, Copy, and I'll jump back to Word by hitting Command-Tab. Hit Return just to give myself some space in the document, and then choose Edit, Paste, and you'll see that it captured the bolding of the text and the relative size of the text. Normally, as I'm commenting, I'm not necessarily going to need to do this, but this is useful to understand if you receive a document that has a comment in it, you can make use of this information outside of the commenting process in your authoring document. Plus, one of the ways that I use it is if I'm going to indicate comments to somebody and I want to save those comments in a text file that I can reuse in some other fashion, it's a good idea to save them outside of the commenting process, outside of the PDF file, in an authoring document format. In this case, I'm using Microsoft Word. So let's jump back to the document in Acrobat, and I want to show you one more thing about this panel, and I'll click to insert the cursor after the text here, and I'm going to increase the size of this window just a little bit, type a space key because I am going to make a spelling mistake. Now, it's a very obvious spelling mistake. It's the word flazoob. Who knows what that word means? I added it here, though, because I wanted to show you that Acrobat will spell check the text that you write into a text note like this. That's incredibly useful because a lot of times as I'm editing documents that come back to me from somebody else and I'm adding my comments, I might create content on the fly. I don't necessarily need to go to an authoring document to write something and then paste it in here. That can be cumbersome. If I just want to write a couple of paragraphs that I know need to replace the existing paragraphs, I can write them here, and I know that I'm not likely to insert any new spelling mistakes into the process because of the fact that Acrobat is spell checking for me. And of course, I can select this if I see that the spelling mistake has been made, and I can right-click on it and select Check Spelling to bring up a spelling checker to give me some options to change the text into something that I might want it to be. In this case, I happen to know that the word flazoob doesn't exist, so I'll just go ahead and hit the Delete key to remove it. So although we focused on this specific tool, it's important that I point out all of the commenting tools in Acrobat work in a very similar way with respect to the fact that they have an icon, they offer you a text box into which you can write some text, and then that text box is something that can contain text, and you can move it back and forth between Acrobat and whatever authoring solution that you choose to use.